When Susan Cole arrived on campus in 1998 for her first day as the new president of Montclair State University, she came to a campus that would be largely unrecognizable today. There were only 12,000 students. The campus was quaint. Fast forward to 2021. Today, 21,000 students study and innovate across a comprehensive range of majors and programs in state-of-the-art classrooms, labs, and studios, all situated on an expansive university campus. New schools like the John J. Calley School of Music, the School of Communication and Media, and the School of Nursing. 5,000 degrees are conferred each year on students who are passionate and ambitious and ready to change the world. As Dr. Cole prepares to step down after an extraordinary and transformative 23-year tenure, she joins us for a special conversation. For the past 23 years, Montclair State University has benefited from the fearless leadership of President Susan Cole. Today, we have the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Cole and talk about her time here on campus, some of the major accomplishments under her leadership, and all of the changes that she's seen over her time on campus. Today, we're going to sit down with Dr. Cole and ask a variety of questions about campus life, academics, and the state of higher education. And we are very lucky to be joined today by 6 students from majors all across campus. And I would also like to point out that this event is being produced by students from the School of Communication and Media. So thanks to all who are participating in this afternoon event. Dr. Cole, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you.
Happy to be here.
And I imagine this may be one of the last interviews opportunities I have. Certainly one of the first things I was able to do when I first got to campus was interview you about what life was like. And a lot has changed in the past 4 years. And we're going to cover that, and we're also going to cover all of the years prior to that. Now, 23 years, that's quite an impressive run for a college president at a time when college presidents are under incredible scrutiny, pressure, and all that comes with that. It's rare to see a president last 5, much less 23 years. Let's go back to the beginning. What was it that drew you to Montclair State, and what were your goals when you first got here?
Well, what drew me to Montclair State was clearly the potential. Here was this small college that had just become a university, and it had a wonderful faculty, a wide range of programs, hardly any campus at all, built campus, and very little resource to work with. And yet it had been doing a really terrific job for a long time, 90 years. and I saw just incredible potential and opportunity here. And I also knew that New Jersey had really underbuilt its public higher education institutions, and that there were many thousands of, not thousands, tens of thousands of people out there that really needed this institution. So the opportunity to think about how to grow it and build it for the people of New Jersey was just really exciting.
Do you remember, was there this is the first thing I have to do when I get here? Like, did you have a list of priorities, like this is number one?
No, I never have only one thing on my list. The problem with my life is every morning I wake up and I have 100 things on my list. But what I did know is it was time to create a vision. If there was a one thing, first thing really, it was to build a vision that this community as a young university could wrap its mind around.
Now, certainly when a lot of alumni come back, or people who maybe haven't been on campus for quite some time, when they come back, the first thing they say is, oh my God, look at this place. Like, this looks so different. I remember when this was, the cliche is always, I remember when this was a parking lot, right? But I remember when this was a field, and if you look around, it is a gorgeous campus with state-of-the-art facilities, and in your time here, literally every building, every space has been transformed, either with a new facility or a facility that was, stripped to the studs and rebuilt for state-of-the-art purposes, including, of course, this fully renovated College Hall, which is the most recent campus facilities project. So obviously transforming the physical plant has been something that's both near and dear to your heart, but obviously something that you think is truly important. In university leadership and thinking about the state of American universities, how important is the physical plant of a campus, and how important is it as a college president to ensure that you are constantly updating that physical plant?
It really depends on the institution, and it depends on the types of programs that you want to offer at that institution. Montclair State was so underbuilt and so under-resourced that it really was not possible to offer the level of science programs, for example, the level of communication programs, and a whole wide variety of others on this campus. The facilities simply weren't there. And so for this campus, it was incredibly important. We had an excellent school of education when I came, education and human services, and they were literally offering their courses in spaces that were former closets. There was nothing. They had nothing. We built the new School of Education, and all of a sudden they had everything that they needed. When we built the School of Business, the students stood outside that building, walked in, and said, holy mackerel, oh my goodness, we had nothing, and now we have everything. They had all of the technology that they didn't have. They had the spaces to work in teams. They had just facilities that you could do anything you wanted in those spaces now in terms of business education. And what they had were a few, crowded rooms in a building that had nothing.
Now, I mean, building construction is challenging. Did you ever get into a project and be like, dear God, what did I just do? Like, this is escalated. It's kind of like when you're fixing your house and you think you're doing the kitchen. Next thing you know, you're doing the kitchen, the living room, and a broken bathroom. Did you ever get into a project? Is there a story that you could share of like, oh, this is getting expensive or something? I mean, any unexpected? Because most people in academia, they're not contractors, right? Was there any kind of funny experience or unexpected experience in this process?
Well, that's why we don't let academics build the buildings. But, we had an incredible track record of building on time and on budget. We really, really did. We worked very hard. I had wonderful professionals in facilities throughout my years here who were excellent at working the design and the planning and the specs so that when we went to construction, we knew what we were doing and we got it done. So we really didn't have any of those terrible experiences, although with some of the earliest things that we built, the parking deck that turned into the parking deck and the Kasser Theater, I mean, right? If you're building a parking deck, you have to have a theater so people can drive up and
It makes sense.
and go be somewhere, go to the theater. What we discovered, of course, in building on this campus is we've got rock. We've got a lot of rock. So you don't build down, you have to build up.
Yep. And I look, I'm sure we could do an entire show about college presidents, universities, and parking. That is, for a later episode. One question before we...
Plumbing and parking.
Plumbing and parking, yes.
These are the things that keep presidents up at night.
Of course.
Plumbing and parking.
Before we go to our first student question, when we talk about campus transformation, particularly the physical plant, but also really student life, there's been a whole lot of dormitory construction in your time here on campus. And in many ways, that's the physical plant, but that really is a transformation of our campus from, almost an exclusive commuter-based campus to one that has a rich residential life. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of residential life at Montclair State, and also your vision for what you think that balance will be moving forward?
Yes, that is actually a very interesting thing. New Jersey, in underbuilding all of its public higher education, really never invested in residence halls. And that was true of Montclair State, and was true of the campuses across the state. They thought, well, there's no reason they don't have to live on campus. It'll just be New Jersey students, and they'll just commute. And the fact of the matter is that for a lot of our students, for many of our students at Montclair State and at the other campuses in New Jersey, the experience of living on campus is absolutely integral to the quality of the education they receive. They need, many of them, to get out of the neighborhoods and cities and communities where they are, to come to a place where they can really focus on their education, where they can work with other students, where they have all the resources, the labs, the computer centers, the library, the study areas, and all their other peer students, as well as advisors and other professional services, to help them really succeed in that education. We have seen that the opportunity for many of our students to live on campus makes the difference between success and failure in their educational lives. And beyond that, it makes the difference in how far they go, how well prepared they are when they graduate.
So as I mentioned, we have 6 students from colleges and schools across campus who will be asking questions here today. So we would like to go to our first question from Caroline Gutierrez, who is a senior psychology major.
Good afternoon, Dr. Cole. It's so wonderful to see you. My question for you is, how has the culture of the university changed during your time as president, and has it been something that you've done or the students have done?
How did the culture change? Well, let me say that Montclair State, from its founding, had a very defined culture. It was an institution that was designed to serve the needs of people and to be an institution of opportunity. It was an institution that based its programs and its sense of itself on educating a broad range of people for full participation in the democratic way of life, and to enable them to prepare for a wide range of professions. So that culture was baked in. But what happened over the last 20 years is that the university opened up much further to the full diversity of New Jersey. More and more students came from every economic, racial, ethnic walk of life, met on this campus and created the most, I think, welcoming and really, in every way, diverse and accepting campus that I've ever seen in the U.S. It has that special quality. When times are tough out in the world and bad things happen, on this campus we pull together and we address the issues and support each other, and we don't bring that battle here. We have created a culture that says we are all members of this community. We accept each other, we support each other, and we succeed together and try not to leave anyone behind, like the Marines.
So let's keep talking about students. In your time here, there's certainly been a real evolution in the disciplines that are offered, obviously new schools, new programs, and we've seen, so many students come here to study business, computer science, STEM fields, nursing. There's just been a huge change in the educational offerings. Obviously, as the president, it's a process to kind of steer, some might say a Titanic, I suppose, that's the wrong metaphor, but a giant boat, let's say, and trying to steer that curriculum forward. But you obviously have had some guiding principles in terms of the kinds of academic offerings that Montclair State has. As someone who I know believes very deeply in foundational liberal arts and kind of that side of the educational process, but also believes really strongly that one of our goals is to make sure that our students graduate ready to enter the workforce. What has been your guiding principle in thinking about the kinds of academic programs that the university should be offering?
Well, let me begin by saying that the creation of academic programs really is done by the faculty. This is not something that a president does. I do not tell my faculty where to build their programs. They are the ones who are the creators of programming and new programming and the revision of programming. But what I could do was to encourage and support them, to explore moving out of the boundaries of their traditional disciplines, work together across those boundaries, those long established boundaries, and find the new avenues of where knowledge and purpose was going in the world, so that we could prepare our students for the world to come, as well as provide them with the history and the culture of the past, so that doesn't get lost. They bring that with them, but we create those new avenues to the way the world is shaping itself. I don't think specifically about workforce. I think more specifically about evolution of the world, the needs of society. Workforce is one of them, but not the only one. How people live in communities, the types of communities, the ecological questions that we face in the world, the internationalism of today's world. And we need to build programs that cross those boundaries so that we can integrate different ways of knowing into how we educate students.
Okay. So for our second student question, we have Bernice Degua, who is a sophomore journalism major.
Hi, Dr. Cole. It's so
Hi.
nice to meet you. As an aspiring journalist, the School of Communication and Media has been a huge part of my life since beginning my time here at Montclair State. What was your inspiration in building the school, and what was your vision for it?
So that's a good question. As I looked at the developing university, it was clear to me that we needed to build more professional schools. And as I thought about it, I knew that the one thing that New Jersey did not need was another law school. And the next thing you think about in universities, engineering. But we sit between NJIT and Stevens, and it didn't seem to make sense to build a competing third engineering school. But there was something that was in the tradition of this institution, broadcasting, that struck me as exactly what could be a great professional school for this university. There really wasn't one in the state, and if you go back to the early days of television, it was Montclair State that worked with the major networks in New York to develop the idea of educational TV. And over the years, they continued that work, and we had this wonderful broadcast program. But there was a lot more to communications and media than broadcast, and that's where the idea came from. We began to put those ideas together, because I knew we had great people here who had been thinking about that. We had the tradition, and I thought we could be great at it. And guess what? We are.
And I, for one, am very thankful that you made that decision. I think it was a very great, wise decision. So we have buildings, we have curriculum, we have students, but as you said in your address to the community earlier this week, it's all of these people who work here who really do help make this place go. And it's the cliche, it takes a village. It takes a huge village here to make this place go as it does. Now, you have been responsible for hiring lots and lots of people, including myself.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
Aren't you lucky?
I am very lucky, and I'm very fortunate that you made that decision. But obviously, you have a philosophy for hiring as well, and the kinds of people that you like to bring on campus. And you know, every place has a culture and kind of a Montclair State way of doing things. And I think if you get to know people, you're like, well, that person has the Montclair State moxie, and all the stuff that clearly you were looking for in building a community. So what is the thing, beyond qualifications and the right degrees and some experience, what are the things that you look for, the tangibles, intangibles, what are the things you look for in making hires at Montclair State, particularly leadership hires?
So what I look for is, first of all, really smart people. The smarter you are,
I take this as a huge compliment. I feel.
yeah, you should. You should. But I won't tell you where on the list of
I
smart
understand.
that
I
you
understand.
are, right? Okay. So I like really smart people. And the second thing that I look for is people who are really excellent at their discipline, whatever it is. If it's an administrator, are they really excellent at finance? Are they really excellent at university facilities? Are they excellent in student affairs and student services? I look for people who have excellence in their discipline combined with a real passion for serving students. That's the important thing. When I talk to new faculty, for example, I say, if you go to a major research university, basically you have to be a top researcher, scholar. Nobody really cares what you're doing with the students. If you go to a teaching college, nice liberal arts college, everybody cares what you're doing with the students, but they don't care that much about the research and the scholarship. Being a faculty member at Montclair State is particularly difficult and demanding because we care about both. We care about the balance of both. The devotion to excellence in the discipline combined with devotion to the service of the education of students. And you put those two things together, that's the difference about the people at Montclair State.
Yeah, and some, in making decisions, whether it's decisions about hiring, decisions about, all the things that need to happen on a university campus, there's this kind of this perception that universities are built on the idea of building consensus. And I've always thought of that as something of a misnomer because consensus is a great way to not do anything. But what's your perspective on consensus or building kind of a coalition? How do you see consensus or coalitions as instrumental? Because, look, as the president, you can make a lot of decisions, but it's probably a lot easier if you have people coming along with you as those decisions are made. What's your philosophy on consensus or building that, kind of a coalition?
I think consensus is difficult, and in academic institutions, one of the things that defines their culture is that everybody is the boss.
Yes.
Everybody is the boss. They got their piece of the world, they're the boss. The faculty member walks into the classroom, it's her classroom. Everybody is in charge. And we need all together to work toward common ends. And how do we do that in an environment where everybody is in charge of their particular piece and invested in their particular piece? And I think the answer to that is it's very difficult. It does not come naturally to the environment, but it can happen if the community holds a common vision, and that's the key to it. So as president, my job was to articulate the vision in a way that everybody could hear it and everybody could contribute to it and sign on to it and feel it was theirs. And once we had that common vision, that sense of where we were going as an institution, what was all this work about? What were we trying to accomplish? And we all agreed about that. Then people could reach consensus. They would argue, they would have long committee meetings, they would be at each other's throats, they would be nitpicking each other's ideas. But in the end, if that vision was held by everybody, the consensus could be reached. Might be time consuming to get there, but if they had that vision, they could do it. And they did it. Look around, they did it.
And universities are nothing if not committees. Just a series of fiefdoms and committees brought together on a college campus. So for our next question.
When we all die, we go to the great committee in the sky.
I just don't want to be chair of that committee. Absolutely not. So,
nor do I.
For our next question, we're going to Alex Colon, who is a senior marketing major.
Hi, Dr. Cole. In your time as president, how have you continued to motivate faculty, staff, and students to strive for success, even during difficult times?
I think the answer to that question is what I said before, vision. But also, I hope it was being present for this community. I was always here. This was, in so many ways, my home. I was here every day. I cared about it every day. I cared about the people in it every day. I worked hard for it every day. And I hoped that people would see that and want to be by my side, being like that too. And so many of them were working hard because they saw me working hard. And they saw that what happens when you do that. And I tried always to say to this community, lift up your eyes, look around, see what you've built, look what you've done. Don't forget to look at what you have done, because it tells you each day how much more you can do. So I guess that's how.
So, I mean, look, there's nothing greater than being on a college campus. I think that's something, it comes through. I mean, it just, for those of us that have kind of given our lives to education, I just think there's something that is magnetic. Just, the privilege of living a life on a college campus, I think, is one of the great gifts in the world. And I think that clearly, your appreciation for the life of the mind and for the life of the college campus, I think, is certainly is very apparent. But let's talk about one of the more recent additions to that life of the mind, and I think an important addition to the university, which is the creation of University College, which really is transformational in so many ways for incoming students. And University College, and certainly it has this long list of missions, but one of them in its most basic form is to help students who are undecided, who do not yet know where their passions are and where their talents are, to figure that out a little bit. And it seems like, certainly, we've gone from a period, decades ago when I was a college student, where you went to college and you're like, I don't know what I want to do, I want to do something, and to a period decades later where when kids were 15, they knew what they wanted to do for the next 40 years of their lives. And it seems in some ways that University College is the reminder that it's okay not to know, and you don't have to get lost in that shuffle, and you don't have to make decisions about what you want to be when you're 50, when you're 15. What advice would you give to high school students, and maybe even our incoming students, who don't yet know?
I think that we do have to make sure that young people coming up don't get too early forced into a direction that may not be the right one for them. I think of a particular student many years ago whose transcript came across my desk for a reason that was we were trying to look at some administrative policy thing, and this just came across my desk as an example. And I looked at that transcript and I said, oh, this is not good. This is not good. Here was this poor student who was trying to be an accounting major. Mm-hmm. And this student was really having a hard time passing basic math courses while trying to be an accounting student. And if I look at the other part of the transcript, this student was getting A's in history.
Mm-hmm. Not important for accounting. But, yeah.
Not important for accounting, but it loved history and was taking many history courses and getting A's, and other courses in the humanities and getting A's, and failing courses in the areas related to his major. But Uncle Joe or somebody had told him, you got to be an accountant. That's the field to go into. Well, not for him, it wasn't the field to go into. University college is for that purpose. Some students know when they're 15, they know maybe when they're 10, they want to be this. They know it, it's in their DNA somewhere, and they're sure, but most students are not like that. I didn't have a clue, for example. You didn't have a clue.
Well, I wanted to be a rock star, which was, I learned later, was not a career path. I didn't find that out, someone told me. They said, you don't have it.
Thank God that
yeah.
person told you.
Yeah, exactly. It was my mom.
Your mom, yeah. Always listen to your mom.
Yeah.
But, right. So did I know I was going to be a university president? I wouldn't have told you that at any point in my life, almost until I became one. So I really think it is okay not to know. But when we saw students coming into what was now a very big university, some students were connected to the College of Science and Math, some were connected to the College of Humanities and Social Science, and then there were thousands of students who were called undeclared, a negative thing.
Sure.
They were a not something. And that was not a good thing. And we created University College, and I might say, in 7 months. Mm-hmm. We created it in 7 months. I remember members of the faculty saying, oh, we need another year to talk about this. I said, no, we don't. We can do it right now. And we did it. And we created something that would enable them to go through the discovery path that is so important to go through and decide, you know, I never even heard of philosophy before, but I sat in that class and that was fascinating. Or I never thought of chemistry, but that's really interesting, isn't it?
And college is where you learn, college is where you grow up and where you learn who you are as a person.
That's right.
Now, that said, I'm sure you're familiar with the movie Spinal Tap. The
Not really.
No, the Ron Howard
I have
fake
huge, vast gaps of popular culture where I know nothing.
Well, this is a fake documentary about a made-up rock band called Spinal Tap. And towards the end of the film, Ron Howard asks, I'm actually getting my producers, I believe mixed up. It's not Ron Howard. But the producer of the film. But I won't know. No, you wouldn't know. I could have gone with it, but I know the viewers.
You could tell me any
I know
producer,
the viewers.
I won't know.
I know the viewers know that I messed that up. But so they ask Nigel, who is the kind of clueless guitarist. They say, you know, if you weren't a rock guitarist, what would you have been? And his answer was a haberdasher. That was the one thing he could think of, and he thought he would have been good at it. So I will ask you: if you had not gone into academia, what do you think you would have done with your life?
I think what I wanted to do with my life was work in the theater. Okay. That was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. Work in the theater was not really a job you could get when I graduated from high school. So I went to graduate school, and hence the beginning of an educational route that I took. But I wanted to work in the theater.
Yes. And you know, perhaps not coincidentally, in some ways, you obviously do.
I very much feel it that way. I think actually was a terrific attribute for the work that I do. I am building the set, I am writing the play, and for me, casting the characters. For me, I am creating. I wanted to create on the stage. I create in real life.
For our next question, we will go to Imani Thompson, who is a senior exercise science major and African American studies minor.
Hi, Dr. Cole.
Hi.
During your time as president, Montclair State has become increasingly more diverse and inclusive. Why is a diverse campus important to you?
A diverse campus is important to me and always has been, because I deeply believe that we need to serve all people. One of the reasons why I love public higher education is that, unlike many private institutions, they have a model in their mindset of the students they want to attract. And so they are looking for students to fit into their model. What I love about public higher education is what we are here for is to look out and say, who's there? Who's there? Come here. And not to create the model of who we want, but to look at who is really out there in the world and say, there's a place for you here. As human beings, if we can't understand that all of us are equal, that all of us deserve opportunity in life, if we can't be open to the differences between us, some differences are obvious, some differences are not obvious, some you can't see at all. But if we can't be accepting of all peoples, then that's a world that we don't want to live in. That's a world that isn't going to take anybody where they want to go. So my goal has always been that Montclair State University shall look like the world we serve, exactly like the world we serve. With all the people out there, they shall be in here. And today, it does. It looks exactly like the world we serve. And it has been looking that way for many years. And how fabulous is that?
So I'm going to shift to one of your favorite topics, working with elected officials and state governments. And I know this is the joy of the job, having that opportunity. And so over your time as presidency, public support, fiscal support for public higher education has continued to dwindle. And it's to an alarming low number, I believe under 20% here in the state of New Jersey, which is borderline exponentially less than what it used to be when the government put a lot of money towards higher education. This obviously changes the burden on families, students, and not only their ability to come and pay for college, but also the debt load that they're going to carry with them. Even at a university such as Montclair State, which is, I think, a wonderful value proposition and does everything it can to be affordable for qualified students. What do you think is the answer or a way through this, what is becoming in some ways an untenable situation, which if it continues as it continues and support continues to drop, it's almost as if we're not a public university anymore, not getting the support, and it will become out of the reach of far too many of our qualified students and create all kinds of, obvious ill effects. What's the answer?
I think the answer is what I've been saying to the New Jersey legislators for 23 years and governor after governor after governor that I've had the opportunity to work with, is a society defines itself by what it supports, what it cares about. If we care about a healthy society, we invest in our hospitals and our healthcare system. If we care about culture, we invest in our museums and performing arts centers. If we care about having an educated citizenry, then we must invest in our educational institutions. There is no substitute for that. A society must invest in the things that are important to it. So as you look down the long term of the decades, New Jersey will be as strong as its investments in the things that are important are strong. And that's why I have spent so much time fighting for investment in public higher education. And it is beginning to turn around a little bit now. It really is under the current administration, but it has been a very long, dry period. And it is worth noting that we built this university into what it is today in a period where that support was declining. And a lot of institutions didn't do that. They said, well, we'll wait till we get the support. And we figured out how to build it on sweat equity by being smart and just working hard at it.
Yeah. You know, there's this, one of my favorite sayings is you pay for things now or you pay for things later. And you invest in education early, or you pay for the ill effects of a disparate and undereducated society later. And so it does seem as though, you're going to pay one way or another. And so as a society, it does seem, wouldn't it be great to pay on the front end and give the
Absolutely.
opportunities?
I mean, if we want a free and prosperous and healthy society, we have to educate our people. There's no substitute for it. We can't do without it. It won't happen without it. And so, I mean, the great thing is people know this. And the people, even when the tuition is too high, people will fight for their right to get it anyway, and if they have to work 3 jobs to be able to go to school, they'll do it because people know the education is important.
Now, you've had clearly success with our state government, so there have to be some secrets, and you've had success that a lot of other campus leaders have not had. What, if you were like, these are my 2 secrets, this is how I win over the legislators, what have been your kind of tools of the trade? What's the secret to kind of getting funding? I mean, the physical plant and all these things, while we certainly aren't getting the funding that we want, you found ways to work the government. What's the secret?
Honesty. I never sugar-coated the message. Honesty. I said what I believed to be correct and true, even when legislators didn't want to hear it. I always said it. And the second thing is persistence. I never gave up saying it. I never gave up fighting for it. So when I came into a room, everybody knew what it was going to be. And in fact, they knew it was true. So the question was, did they have the political will to do the right thing? But I told the truth all the time. I did not let anyone get away with pretending that what was not okay was okay.
Well, there's a lot to be said for truth and a whole lot to be said for persistence.
Yes.
There's a whole lot to be said for persistence. For our next question, we will go to Paulette Gando-Duenas, who is a senior history major.
Hello, Dr. Cole.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Nice to see you. My question is, do you have an experience that changed your perspective on how to lead the campus today?
I didn't hear the end of that.
Do you have an experience that changed your perspective on how you lead the campus today?
A perspective on...
Was there a singular experience that changed your perspective on leadership?
Well, that's interesting. Let me think about that. I think that there was, and I don't know if I can say it was a singular experience, but what happened as I worked through the years was that I became increasingly aware of how much we could do, how successful we could be. You start out on a task, you have a vision, you start building, and you hope you can get from point A to point B. And then you discover not only can you get to point B, you could get to point G. Well, if you could get to point G, then maybe you could get to point R. And I think that it was an awakening experience that was continuous about how much we could really accomplish and how good people in the community could be at making that vision real. So I think there were like a whole series of such epiphanies. I remember, for example, when we finally got the bond bill passed to the Building Our Future bond bill that enabled us to build the new School of Business and the Center for Environmental and Life Sciences. And I had worked so hard to get that bond bill passed. And we were so ready on this campus to put the shovels in the ground. We started building those two buildings simultaneously at the same time in the middle of the campus. And I was disbelieving of the fact that we could actually do that, you know, and keep the campus running and build these two incredible facilities simultaneously. And yet we could. And in a year and a half, they opened, and we had a single ribbon cutting for both buildings. I was stunned. I was really stunned. We did this. And the same thing happened with our first major residence life project, after the village, when we built the Heights. And we thought, well, maybe we'll build 1,000 beds. Should we build 500 or 1,000? Well, let's go to 1,000. And then we said, well, you know, maybe we should build some extra in case, so let's go to 1,500. And then I said, oh, what the heck, let's build 2,000. And again, shovels ready in the ground, trying to get all we had to get laws passed to build that as a public-private partnership. And I was in the governor's office. We needed the last signature. Don Donalo from Terminal Construction was standing on the campus with the shovel. And Governor, I said, you've got to sign this. We have to start digging. Signed it. Signed it. Go away, Cole, he said. Signed it. Picked up my cell phone. Dig, Donald, I said. And he started digging. We had 1 year to get the Heights open, you know, and it was amazing. We opened it, all 2,000 beds filled the first day. We were building for the future, all 2,000 beds. The first day, 2,000 students walked in to those residence halls. We were all stunned. It happened all the time. We did it, and then we were stunned that we could do it. So we said, okay, let's do something else.
I'm sure a lot of counseling for the facilities crew over the years probably have, you know, enjoyed the opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about, as we're talking about leadership and progress, let's talk a little bit about the mythology of President Cole. And there is a mythology, certainly. As I mentioned to our students, a lot have said, I've never met President Cole. I'm a little nervous, right? There may be a myth that you can be an intimidating figure or perhaps tough. Now, of course, I know that's not true, but I do know that in your role as president, toughness is critical. I'd like to know a little bit more about your concept of leadership and toughness. And is that inherently, shall we say, a role that you feel that you must play? Is there, you know, the real Susan Cole, shall we say, and the President Susan Cole? And how do you assume that position? And maybe to kind of give some context to that question, tell us a little bit about yourself, or tell us something that perhaps we wouldn't assume or know about you.
Well, probably one of the things that you don't assume about me is that President Cole is the real Susan Cole. Ask my kids. I think that it's not that I'm tough. I'm actually very warm-hearted.
I know this. That.
But I do believe in accountability. And I do think that leadership is about accountability, and not just for the president, but for everybody in an institution. I think the faculty member in the classroom is accountable for how well they are imparting that knowledge and what type of experience their students are having in that classroom. I think you are accountable for the management of the School of Communication and Media. I think we're all accountable to do our work well on behalf of the institution and the people that we serve by the institution. And I do demand that excellence and that accountability, and I don't think that we have the right or the luxury to be mediocre in what we do, to be lazy about what we do, to not care about what we do. I think we owe the institution, we owe the state that we serve, we owe the students that we serve, and we owe each other as colleagues that push to be really excellent at our part, at what we're doing, and to be accountable for it. So that if you want to call that toughness, but I really call it a demand for accountability and excellence, because I know we have that in us to give, and I really do everything I can to hold people to that contract. We give you this opportunity, you give us that.
Do you think sometimes, I mean, look, I actually appreciate that style of leadership because you know where you stand, you know what your expectations are, and I think maybe, look, if you grow up as an athlete, your coach lets you know exactly what he thought about your last performance. Do you think sometimes do you think that sometimes people have a hard time understanding or the difference between toughness and even tough love and, you know, people sometimes just riding them a little bit? I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this, but maybe the question is, are we sometimes a little bit too sensitive? Like, is that?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
People are. People are sensitive. They do have, just people, all people, they're sensitive. They don't like to hear that anything they did was not okay. Mm-hmm. We have, as people, a hard time accepting criticism. Human beings are quite sensitive. And we have to get over ourselves. We just do. I'm sorry you feel badly that I told you that really wasn't up to snuff, that really wasn't as good as it needed to be. I am sorry that you feel badly about that. I know you're going to have a bad night tonight about that, but just think about it and then get on with it. Get over it and do it better next time. I think we spend too much time worrying about how we feel. I really think that. Believe me, as president, there are tons of people out there coming at me all the time. I mean, really.
Someone says something mean to you, ever? Really? By the way, I want you to come talk to my kids about their math homework. I want that exact message, like, I don't care that you did poorly. You're going to do better next time. Like,
yeah.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, no, people are mean to me all the time. Say mean things about me, say mean things to me, patronize me, excoriate me, all of that. So what? So what? My job is not to worry about it. You know, I say to people, don't read your press. If it's good, you'll think you're better than you are. If it's lousy, you think you're worse than you are. Don't read your press. It's not about your press. It's not about what people say about you. It's not about the mean things they say to you or the flattering things they say to you. It's always and only about doing the best job that you can by the light that you have on where it is that we need to go. That's it.
So this past year, I imagine, I'm sure there have been a lot of difficult years, but it's hard to imagine one that's been tougher than this past year, and a ton of changes that have come obviously on our campus, but you know, globally, in New Jersey, in our respective industries. What changes do you think that we've seen? And we're all ready for, the word is let's get back to normal. But none of us know what that really means. What kind of changes do you think will be enduring for higher education because of the experience of this past year? And what kind of changes do you think will be enduring for kind of society and industry at large?
I think that the most important thing that we learned going through the hell of this pandemic over the last year and a half is not what the media are talking about in terms of what they think universities learned. I think what we really learned was how important this community was as a living organism. We did not do well separated from each other. We didn't do well. We survived. We made the best of it. The students worked hard at it. They did their best. The faculty did their best. The administrators did their best. We all did our best. And we got through it. We survived it. But we did not do well. We need the human interaction that this campus is. There's a reason why all these buildings are here. It's because they bring us together in different ways and of being with each other around different kinds of experiences. And we need this community. We need each other. The students needed each other. They needed us. We needed them. And the relationships that we maintained over Zoom were disjointed and lopsided and a little askew. And we began to treat each other in ways that were not natural and not productive over those mechanisms. So I think the biggest learning was, no, these universities are not going away. We're not going to be all studying online now. There is a magical thing that happens on a university campus, and it cannot be reproduced on Zoom. It cannot be reproduced that way. The other thing we learned was technology is quite powerful and quite interesting, and a lot of people who hadn't really explored it in the past and had to explore it now learned a lot about it. I think we all learned to use it in ways that we had not used it before. And we now see that there is another tool we have, not to substitute for the life of the campus, but to bring into the life of the campus that can increase our ability to do all of the things that we were doing before. So I think we learned that.
Yeah. I am very, very excited to welcome everyone back to campus. And so
Yes.
I as someone who likes space every now and then, I'm surprised at how much I miss humans. So, so for our final student question of the interview, we'd like to introduce Brogan Quigley, who is a junior accounting major, who I believe does very well in his math classes.
I'm sure he does. But how do you do in history?
Not that great.
See? So you're in the right major.
Could you describe a defining moment, experience, or accomplishment of your time as president?
Well, I've talked about some. Let me think about that. I should have known you were going to ask that question. It's so interesting because people often ask me, what's the most important thing you did? Or what's the best thing you did? Or what's the thing you did that you liked the most? And I almost never know how to answer that question because almost every experience I've had on this campus has been a defining moment. And I know that sounds weird, but really it has been. And everything I did, I have loved tremendously. So the Casa Theater is tremendously important to me, and the work that's gone on in the Casa Theater has been extraordinary. And that was certainly a defining moment. creating a school of nursing where there was none, nothing, and all of a sudden there it is, a school of nursing for the 21st century. That was a defining moment. University College was a defining moment. Opening the Center for Environmental and Life Sciences and looking at those extraordinary laboratories. We had nothing like it on campus before. That was a defining moment. Down to 23 years of standing on the stage at commencement and watching each year thousands more students walk across that stage. Every time I shook the hand of a student walking across the stage was a defining moment. One more soul going forward in life. Almost everything I've done and lived and worked for on this campus day after day and year after year was that kind of defining moment. And it's why I stayed for 23 years. Because why would I go anywhere else when all of this was happening here and every day we were building something new and every day was a defining moment.
You know, Dr. Cole, I'm guessing, and knowing you, the defining moment or the most exciting or most important moment was probably the next one. It was always the next one. And so we're just about to wrap up. I have two short questions I'd like to hear your answers for. One is, as you suggested, I mean, you haven't had time to see Spinal Tap. I think we've talked about Shark Tank before. There are a lot of things that you've had to kind of push on the back burners, and you'll have some time to catch up on some of your other passions and interests.
Spinal Tap has to be
on
that list?
It should be up there. It doesn't have to be first. I can give you a movie list if you're looking for it. But there's things that you're going to miss. What will you miss the most about being president of Montclair State?
I will miss the getting up in the morning and feeling the weight of the university around me, the sense that I have this thing I have to take care of today. I actually love taking care of things. I could never have been a doctor. That's not in me. I don't like taking care of things that way.
Sure.
But there's no nurse in me either. But I love taking care of something and moving it forward. And that feeling when I get up every morning and I literally feel the weight of the university and the joy I have in it and my desire to move it another foot down the road today, I will miss that feeling. On the other hand, I genuinely believe that it is time for me to put that down. I genuinely believe that it is time for new leadership because this is not a monarchy. And it is time for the next president to pick that up and look at it with fresh eyes. And I also genuinely believe that in the remaining years of my life, it's really important for me to spend some time being Susan and not President Cole. And there's, I said earlier I said the secret about me is President Cole is the real Susan Cole, but it's not living the real Susan Cole, because when you're president, you're living that role every day. Every day. There's no day you don't live that role. If I go to the supermarket, the people in the community sort of back me up against the cereal aisle and ask me about why there was noise on the parking lot.
You're like a high school football coach in Texas. Well, I know why you didn't win the last game, sure.
Right. So when you're the president every day. There's no day you're not the president. There's no hour of the day you're not the president. There's no relationship you have with another human being that isn't in that role. And I think it's time for me to spend some years just being Susan, living Susan.
Well, to all of us, you will always be President Cole, and certainly, I would like to thank you certainly on behalf of myself and all of our colleagues for all the tireless work you've done here on campus. And I know, while we may be hard on you sometimes as our leader, you have been transformative in ways that you don't imagine. And so I certainly would like to thank you for the opportunities you've given to me and to all of my colleagues, but certainly to the thousands and thousands of students whose lives are better because of your work. And so thank you so much for spending time certainly here with us and with our students, and we really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about your time here on campus, and we look forward to seeing what is next for Susan. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here today. Another pleasure in the long list of my years at the university.
Well, thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.